In the Planning Commission of Nevada City, we are called to order. This Planning Commission meeting convenes on the ancestral territories of the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe. Will you do a roll call for us, please?
Yes. I think we're going to do it. Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Here.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Here.
Chair Nye?
Here.
We're present.
And we are not as yet joined by our city attorney, but may be in progress. Peter, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would.
Thank you.
If the audience would like to join us. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't need it after all. Yeah. How many times have I said this? Years.
This is the time, I think, I'm a little confused, for public comment for any item which is not on today's agenda. There's a public comment period for every agenda item as it comes up and has to restrict itself to the agenda item as named. But if anybody wants to make a public comment for items not on the agenda, this is the time. Just join us at the lectern. And seeing none, let's begin with the consent calendar. All items under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature, and all recommended actions of the staff report will be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the commission or public requests otherwise, in which case the item will be removed for separate consideration. Any item so removed will be taken up following the motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. First item is, well, item 4 is public hearing on 124 Argyle Way conditional use permit amendment. So if that applicant could join us here at the table. And then Lisa will introduce the item and give us info we need.
Thank you, Chair Nye. This is for a conditional use permit amendment for Rainy Parlor Games, which is a 501c7 nonprofit. Their business model is a private member social club with an emphasis on parlor games, specifically vintage pinball. There's currently an approved use permit for that site for a brewery use, so that is why this is an amendment. There's currently 11 parking spaces designated for the space. Parking was analyzed under the initial use permit application and approval process, and the fire chief established a maximum occupancy of the space, and the Planning Commission at the time made a finding that the parking was suitable. There's also an outdoor use that is included in the existing use permit that the applicants would like to use for their new use. The outdoor use shall always comply with the city's noise standard, and I have included a recommended condition of approval on that, which is music should go off if it's outdoors by 9 p.m. The zoning of the site is local business, which is intended to provide shops and services catering to the day-to-day needs of nearby residents. The local business zone conditional uses described in the municipal code includes a line item for social halls, lodges, fraternal organizations, and clubs, which describes the proposed use. and that is why the item is before you today. I would request that the Planning Commission make a finding for CEQA and then also for the use permit.
Is there anything you'd like to add to Lisa's introduction?
Pretty good. Yeah, we're just looking to start a social club there. It's private membership, and so we're not looking for a signage outside or to change anything with the building. There'd be no music or noise outside, always inside. We started this about 4 years ago, and our members just enjoy it so much they just wanted a better place, a spot that's easier to get to, and this spot seemed perfect because we don't want, we don't need walk-in traffic, but yet it's still close enough to get to for most people. And we have a lot of friends in Nevada City that were begging us to come to Nevada City, not Grass Valley.
We also really like the Seven Hills Business District idea because we find that that area kind of suits more to locals and not as much to tourists. So, and that's really kind of our customer membership base would be locals.
Yeah, most members are all second generation from here.
Okay, any questions from commissioners for staff or for the applicants?
Not for me, pretty straightforward.
I do have a question. Can you, would it be helpful to describe in more detail the line item that pertains to social halls, lodges, fraternal organizations, and clubs? Since it's an area that has been retail, high traffic, a thing that creates a public buzz, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So if you could elaborate on that, if you can.
Yeah, of course. So in each zoning, there's an allowed use and there's a conditional use. So allowed uses are allowed by right. So like in a residential use, you're allowed by right to build a home. Or in this zone, the local business zone, you would be allowed by right to open a restaurant or a bakery or something and not need to come to the commission for a conditional use permit. But since it is a little bit of an alternative use and not having that walk-in traffic, I think that is why it's included in the code as a conditional use permit, just to kind of, for the commission to take a look at it.
But an approved use in this zone.
Yes, by way of a conditional use permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
I have no questions.
Does anyone have a motion?
Public comment?
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Any public comment on this item? I forget that sometimes. Okay, seeing none, thanks.
Two things, right?
Yes.
I will move that we determine the product category exempt from environmental review as in the packet.
Seconded.
Sorry, Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
The Chair, Nye.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'll also move that we approve the proposed use permit amendment, subject to the conditions of approval, making findings A to C pursuant to the municipal code as described in the packet.
ADC?
Oh, it says A to C, but I see,
It's A to B.
yeah, I think there's a
and
B.
typo in there. Yeah, A to B,
Typo.
A and B. Yep.
And may I make an addendum to that
Sure.
motion to also include the recommended conditions of approval? That includes items 1 and 2.
Yeah, I did, yeah, I said subject to the conditions of approval.
Okay, all
That's
right.
fine.
Sorry, just
That's
So
okay.
moved.
double.
Double.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes. You're in business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when's the big opening?
It'll probably take us a few months to paint and get things ready and move things over. We'll take our time. Yeah, we're thinking maybe 2 months. We get the keys June
okay.
1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe some soft openings just to test the waters.
Yeah, I live around the corner, so
Pretty come visit us.
I'll be looking, see, looking.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, wish you the best.
Good luck with it.
See if the button works. Okay, next we have Communal Cafe sign, item 5, 233 Broad Street. If the applicant is here, if they could join us.
I don't think he's here.
Okay. Well, we can probably move ahead, and if we don't need the applicant present, then we can proceed.
I think that would be okay since we did that the first time.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce it for us?
Sure. So this is for a sign for Communal Cafe, which is directly underneath the sign that was approved at our meeting in April for the 1856 Speakeasy overnight getaway. The total sign area for both signs is 30 by 24 inches. The previous motion made by the commissioners was to request the applicant to revise to a more traditional font for the Communal Cafe text and change the chrome hanger brackets to match the top chain style to black, which they were sort of a goldish color before. So applicant Anthony Lichtel provided an updated rendering of a sign with CRA modern text for the Communal Cafe portion, and for the espresso bar, local kitchen and bakery text, it is a Canva Sans text. And the CRA modern is the same as what's on the Speakeasy part of the sign. And the actual speakeasy word, it gives you an idea of what it'll look like. And he did already change the links to be black. He confirmed that with me too.
Okay. Any questions from us?
Why, I have a question. I know I was here, but I don't recall why we were asking them to change this.
The font on the Communal Cafe,
The font, so the font,
it was called like a hobo something.
yeah, but it was also developed, I think, in a time-appropriate period.
Yeah, so Rod voted no because he thought that it was similar to what's in our sign design guidelines, but there was sort of a general disliking of the font, so.
I'd also note that after the, I don't know if this is
Please,
appropriate,
yeah.
Mr. Chair, after the meeting, a member of the public pointed out that with a little Googling, I found that
Yeah.
the hobo font was actually created in like 1916.
Yeah.
So I felt, that's part of the reason, I didn't know that at the time, but I still felt that it was appropriate, and that still makes me feel that it's appropriate. Now I'm getting into discussion, but.
I guess my question for that is, do we, given that finding that this font was developed in a time-appropriate period, is it appropriate still for us to be asking them to change the sign? Perhaps this is for you, Lisa, or for Russ?
I think we're getting into discussion, and before we proceed with that,
Well, it was a question.
okay, all right.
So your question is, could it be, now that the font has been found, that it might be more historic than originally thought, could it be reevaluated?
Yes. Is this necessary?
It could be reevaluated,
Okay.
yeah. This is the application that's before you today, but if you wanted to approve either, you potentially could.
Okay, thank you.
Any public comment on this? One in the house? Seeing none. Discussion, I guess, let's start with Peter.
Sorry, my bad.
Russ?
Yeah, I was,
Oh, okay. I can go either way in it, but this is the one that has been presented by the owner, so if he's comfortable with it, I guess I'll be comfortable with it.
The one that was brought back, or the original one?
The one that's in front of us now.
There are two.
Where's the other one?
This
I'm sorry, I missed that part. That's right, I like the bottom one.
We did take a vote, and a majority of the commission agreed that that this font in combination with the entire composition, we weren't comfortable with. And so that was our majority decision. So an alternate's been put before us, which, I'm sorry, I kind of jumped the line. Is
That's
there
okay.
anything you'd like to add?
I think I basically said my feeling before, that I feel that either is acceptable, and to my eye, actually, the original is preferable, but I find either acceptable. To me, the original one had a little more differentiation between the cafe and the lodging above it. So I think that that distinction is useful, but given that they are separate businesses. That's my comment.
Okay.
I agree with Rod.
Okay.
I also appreciate the fact that they look different, and I'm not sure if it's within my purview, but I don't like the idea that we're asking them to make a new sign when the other sign fits guidelines.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
How to phrase this? I would move that we approve the proposed sign, but also approve reinstation of the originally proposed sign, which is there today, given the consistency with the guidelines and the historic nature of the font. And we leave it to the applicant to make that decision. If they want to keep it, that's fine, especially given that they've changed the rings already. And if they want to change it, that's fine as well.
I'll second.
Sorry, to clarify, it's a motion to allow the applicants to use either version.
Correct.
Okay.
Good catch.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Knight?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks. Getting my slow computer back to the agenda.
Tree removal.
Item 6 is tree removal of 5 trees at 144 Grove Street. Do we have an applicant? Welcome.
Afternoon.
Welcome.
My wife and I own this property.
Excuse me, we'll just go in order of our usual procedure, which is Lisa introducing the agenda
Oh, I'm
item.
sorry.
No, it's fine. it's
We
fine.
get it wrong too.
Yeah, well, we want to know what you have to say, if
Yeah, yeah.
you'd like to proceed.
So this is for 144 Grove Street. Applicant and property owner Peter Wilson requests removal of 4 large trees, which are 34 to 44 inches in diameter, and they are all cedar trees, and 1 mid-sized cedar tree, which is 9 inches. The trees that are requested for removal are growing in a clumping pattern, and several of them are co-dominant, so they actually appear as 2 trees. One of the tops of a tree broke off during a storm and damaged the eave of the home. In my review, I did find that they're very close to the home and also a deck. Tree number 5 is located downslope, closer to, not close to the creek, but closer to the creek, and is requested for removal due to crowding other trees, including a large pine and several oak trees. So the requested motion would be for a CEQA finding and for a finding on the tree removal. And I will state that there's an error in the staff report on the recommended motion number 2. Just for the record, I have an error and it says the wrong address. So correction there to 144 Grove Street.
Thanks. And what would you like to add?
Not very much, just that the first 3 trees are in this tight clump, about close to the house, about 12 feet away from the house. And there's a risk with fire, obviously, but the other risk is they're not in very good condition. And in the spring storm this year, a large section of one of the trunks, about 15 feet, crashed into the house. It caused a couple of $1,000s worth of damage, and it's also, they're right opposite the main bedroom where my wife and I sleep, so there's a certain amount of trepidation with those. The smaller tree has grown close to the other 3, and so it's sort of maldeveloped. One side has got a lot of branches, the other side really doesn't have much. And the final tree is not a threat to the house, but it is inhibiting the oaks which are close to it, which are in better condition. Also, when we bought the house, we weren't tree experts, so we got a local arborist, got him to come in, and he's mapped all the trees. He's come every couple of years to see what condition they're in, and we make this application on his recommendation after consulting him about it.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from commissioners? No? Public comment? Any discussion? How about a motion?
Motion to approve as recommended in the paperwork here, number 1 on the CEQA and number 2 on the application for the tree removal.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wasn't as hard as you can worried about, huh? And sleep well.
Thank you.
Getting back to the agenda here.
Page 48.
It doesn't want to go. Item 7, 641 Chief Kelly Drive, a new residence. Hello, welcome. Would you like to introduce this item
Sure.
for us?
So this is an application from Mike and Jackie Bennett, property owners at 641 Chief Kelly Drive, for architectural review and tree removal for a new residence that they would like to construct. The zoning of that lot is R2 SP, which is multifamily residential site performance. The building complies with the setback standards and the lot coverage requirement being less than 50%. The parcel was created by way of a subdivision map, or tentative map, recorded October 2001. And it is lot 17 on that map. I do believe I put that map in the packet for your review. And as part of that subdivision, the parcel was zoned multifamily residential designation with a site performance combining district with standards outlined in ordinance 2000-01, which is attached in the staff report. And that ordinance created specific condition, site performance conditions for the parcels in this neighborhood. And we can go over that if you'd like. Access to the property is via Chief Kelly Drive. The proposed residence is just under 3,000 feet at 2,998 square feet. And it's proposed to be 2 stories with a walkout basement. Shingle roof, primary roof pitch at 8 and 12. Siding is proposed to be hardy cement board and batten style, with the peak of the gable end walls having a shake shingle siding. Windows are proposed to be Milgard Trinsic Series, white vinyl. And some of the ordinance requirements for the site performance combining district include requirements for the home design, size, massing, and design features. I have reviewed those and find that the application is in conformance with that ordinance. Along with their architectural review, they're asking for removal of 5 trees that are, 4 of them are located within the building footprint, and 1 is just beyond in the backyard, I believe. So the recommended findings would be for a CEQA motion and for an architectural review, and then also for a tree removal.
Thanks. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, that was, yeah, sums it up pretty well, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from the commission for staff or for the applicants? I have none. Any public comment for this application? Seeing none. Discussion? We'll start with Peter. Do you have anything?
Very nice looking, actually, well designed.
Thank you.
No, it looks great. Very nice for the location. Amy?
No.
How about a motion then to approve? Amy? I move we approve the project as proposed, finding a negative declaration for CEQA and including all recommended conditions of approval. How'd I do?
Including the tree removal?
Including the tree removal. Should that be separate motions?
You can make it in one motion.
Okay, yep, including the tree removal.
And the architecture review.
What? And architecture review.
Yes. That's the title.
I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I usually don't make the motions.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Knight?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You're in business, good luck with it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
These gizmos are working pretty well.
I was right. I was gonna go fast.
Okay, next is item 8, 516 Nimrod Street, new driveway for ADU.
Hi, everybody.
Hello?
My wife,
Hello?
Rhonda.
Hello again, hello, Rhonda?
Is Brian able to join us?
I just messaged him, so hopefully he's in the building.
Oh, Brian?
Yeah, we've asked our city engineer to join us because of the,
He can't, but,
no, the city engineer, Brian McAllister.
oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So hopefully he's making his way down. In the meantime, though, Lisa, you can let us know what we're doing today.
Okay.
and why.
So, let's see here. So this project is for a site plan review for a new driveway for an ADU. The current residence is 1,824 square foot with an attached carport. Access along this, it's a larger lot at 0.51 acres, and the proposed ADU location is in the rear of the lot, which has frontage on Clay Street and Nimrod Street, or Marty's lot has frontage on Clay and Nimrod. The ADU is not able to be ministerially reviewed primarily or only at staff level review because of the proposed driveway. So we are asking the commission to review it as a site plan review in order to give the public a chance to comment and the commission to evaluate the project. The ADU is consistent with our design standards for ministerially approvable projects, but a driveway is not allowed by right for an ADU. And I think typically that's because ADUs are accessed via the main driveway, but in Marty's case, there's a carport that sort of blocks the access to the rear of the lot, where him and his family park. We did have, so the item came to you in March of 2024, and then also in March, on the 8th, the Commissioner Peter Van Zant and Chair Nye met with the project applicant to review the site plan and evaluate the proposed driveway. The motion made at the March meeting was to have a drainage report prepared by the engineer to evaluate the runoff from Clay Street and so that the commission could make a finding of whether or not the drainage in the area was an issue. And that is, I think, covers the things. Same thing as other projects. I'm asking for a CEQA finding and a site plan finding.
Thanks, and we, so we're not weighing in on the on architecture review on the ADU itself. So that's approved ministerially, so we're only discussing the driveway.
Yes.
And I kind of jumped the line. Is there anything you'd like to add to what Lisa said since we last met?
Only that I asked K2, the engineer, to come down today, and he was on the job site and couldn't make it. But I sent him an email and asked him what this whole thing even means, because I don't know. But he said it's just, there is some drainage off Clay Street, but the pipe and drainage ditch that we engineered can more than handle any runoff. And so they'll actually have less water in the neighbor's yard than there is now. So that's what he said we could call him if we wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, and can you, for the benefit of Lisa, for the benefit of the public and for us, why this has come before us and why the driveway is not ministerially approved, and what we should be considering as a commission? What's our purview of what should we be considering as we weigh in on this?
Of course. So the reason that the project is before you today is because we can approve many ADUs at staff level approval or as planning commission approval. ADUs are allowed by right on a parcel, but nowhere in our code do we state that a second driveway is allowed for a second ADU on a building. And so we determined that since this is, sort of an intensified development, you could say, of the back of their lot, that it should be reviewed as a site plan. And then typically site plans are for commercial projects, and they include review of things like number of parking spaces, walls, fencing, lighting, ADA, things like that. But it does still apply. They do have a proposed paved driveway and parking space and turnaround area. And so the disturbance will be, as it's a real disturbance to the back of that lot, or improvement, I guess you could say, with a drainage ditch along the side of the driveway and a culvert directing water across and down and into that drainage ditch.
And what should we be considering? Aesthetics, public safety,
Yes, public safety,
neighboring properties considerations?
yes, the neighboring property considerations, definitely. Trying to think about how to say that. So the health and safety and welfare of the community, the value of the neighboring properties, I think is how the code is written. Yeah, I could look that up and get back to you.
But aesthetics shouldn't be something we're considering, like, does the driveway look pretty? It's not one of the things we're considering.
Correct.
Were the neighbors notified, and do we have any comments from the neighbors?
We'll see in a moment.
So the way the code reads is standards of the site plan review. The purpose of the site plan review, which shall guide the commission in its action thereon, is to assure that the requirements of this title and the general plan are complied with in a manner that will not substantially depreciate property values in the vicinity or unreasonably interfere with the lawful use and enjoyment of other properties in the vicinity or endanger the public health, safety, and welfare.
And a driveway to this ADU is considered a reasonable use of the property. And that's within our considerations. Is it a reasonable use? And it is. Or I guess that's up to us to decide whether or not it's a reasonable use of the property.
It definitely is, yes.
Right, okay.
So the ADU could be accessed by the existing driveway?
It could, but there's currently a carport that's constructed there.
I see.
That it creates a covering for parked vehicles that's attached to the house, so.
Okay.
Can I say something real quick? Yeah, so we'd have to move all our cars for anybody to get down to the ADU every time, and in and out. Just wouldn't work very well.
And this is a question, and there's a steep slope from the access on Nimrod down into the site.
Exactly. The other day I pulled out of there, just to get out of there, I had to put it in four-wheel drive for a second after it rained. A little, wet still.
Mm-hmm.
A little steep and gravel, so. It's just, be way better off of Clay Street. So I thought I'd try to find out if we could do it. It makes way more sense.
And the size of the driveway and the turnaround are pretty much just meet the requirements for width, the pull-out turnaround area. It's not oversized. My understanding is that it's not an overly generously sized driveway.
I think that's more of a question for Brian. I know the parking size, but I think the plan shows 2 parking spaces and then a backup area. I'm not 100% sure if a backup area is required, but obviously the fire chief wants that. So.
Yeah, Brian, yes, would you speak to that?
Sure.
Size.
Yeah, our code does require that maneuvering areas be provided for driveways and that they also be paved. So it's minimally sized. It's not oversized. It's just wide enough to serve as a driveway, and then the turnaround area just makes it so that you don't have to back all the way up to Nimrod, which wouldn't be appropriate to back out onto Nimrod anyway.
Or Clay.
Right onto Clay.
Sorry.
Also, so we requested you come back with a drainage report, and like you, I have no idea what that means. So Brian, maybe you don't sit down yet. You reviewed it and maybe have some recommendations in response to that and in reviewing the site. So
Yeah,
can you tell us about the drainage report?
Okay.
Interpret
Yeah, that
for us.
was requested of the applicant after last meeting. And in response to some of the concerns the neighbors had, because there is a natural flow path that goes through that property. So the engineer provided a drainage analysis that included hydrology calculations and culvert sizing to show how much water is coming off the street intersection and the drainage shed in general, and how much water is coming through the site. So I think that met that requirement. But I just recall some other concerns were related to how much new impervious surface is going to be introduced at that location, and what's being done to mitigate that. So I think there's more that could be done with the design details, which could come together with the building permit set. And so some ideas would be a small rock line basin that allows infiltration, and I would suggest the size of that basin be sized so that you could handle the 10-year storm event of that equivalent depth of runoff. So it would be just basically a rock line depression that would hold back and allow infiltration and mimic the natural hydrologic function of the site as it exists now, with where the water just comes onto the site and into the ground. So, and then the V-ditches along both sides can be rock lined, and that would slow down the water and let it infiltrate. So those are some suggestions that could be implemented with the building permit set. So Lisa and I talked about it. We didn't feel like that it would be necessary to revise the drainage report. These are more like recommendations for the design details that would go into the plan set.
Perhaps made necessary or suggested because aesthetically, I ain't no one of those people, but it looks like it wants to be a place for water to drain into the ground. And with the addition of a lot of impermeable surface, the dynamic's going to be changed of quite a lot. So an end run probably needs to be made. It seems that you're saying an end run needs to be made to prevent that change in dynamic from affecting the neighbors and having increased runoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Brian. And you've made recommendations or made recommendations that your office has a path toward making these suggestions before it goes to plan check? I think that's what you said.
Yeah, the recommendations I just described are written in our in the staff report as recommended conditions of approval, which could be reworded today or changed, modified. But yeah, that's in the application. That would be recommended conditions of approval.
And those suggestions you made would, in your opinion, address the concerns of people who commented at our last meeting?
Yeah, I think so, because we would be holding back and allowing infiltration, so which would prevent that concentration of flow that happens when you have runoff from impervious surfaces.
Right. And those structures or features don't exist now with the site as it is.
Right.
It can if the velocity of the water, I understand that if the velocity of the water isn't interrupted, it can flow down to other properties, as people have described has happened in the past. So this will improve, your suggestions will improve the dynamic over what currently exists, potentially.
I have a question.
Sure.
Regarding your engineering recommendations. This is a very nitpicky rhetorical question, I suppose. Rhetorical in the sense that the wording in number 4 says runoff from new impervious surface can be mitigated instead of shall be mitigated. Is that the kind of thing that we're going to have to pay attention to when we make recommendations? Okay, can versus shall. Okay, thank you.
And that, though, Amy's concern would be covered if we included as a condition of approval, including the city engineer's recommendations.
Well, this is his recommendation, and the
Oh, I
way it's
see.
written compared to previous
Okay.
additions is that it comes off as a suggestion but not a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, that can certainly be reworded.
Okay, that's all I got.
Quick question though, before you sit down, so there's already a V ditch with rock lined, and there's already a dissipator at the bottom. We just need to make it bigger.
Yeah, I think the V-ditch might move over because of the driveway, and then,
Well, it's right next to the driveway.
I mean, the new driveway's not there yet.
Right, it's
But,
right next to the new
okay.
driveway.
So,
So any water will
Yeah.
flow into it.
right,
And we could go all the way down to the bottom of the driveway with it if we wanted. So any water off the asphalt would go into the dissipator.
right, yeah.
That'd be
I
great.
think that'd be a good idea. And then it would fill and then spill and gradually, follow natural flow paths from there.
But it does now.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way that Brian wrote it into this recommendation is a calculation that depends on all the surface area that's added.
Right.
Thanks, Brian.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any public comments? Yeah, please, you can join us at the lectern and identify yourself. And
I'm living in the next door to Marty. My name is Hiroshi Ishii. I have lived here for 25 years. We used to see deer, raccoon, fox, bear, skunk, mountain lions, and other native animals in our yard. Deer used to come here for afternoon nap, and fox played around a large rock. Since Marty moved all the trees and is scraping soil in the ravine, no wild animal has been seen. His debris started piling up on his side of the border and then stopped the seasonal stream. We believe the building of a new driveway and ADU will permanently detract the animal from returning to their homes. Most of us here are to live respectfully among all nature and not drive it out. So we do not support building a community similar to large urban area. Out of respect of nature, we ask that the request for ADU and the new driveway be rejected. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Sue Coffey, and I live at 504 Nimrod Street. I am 3 houses down from the proposed area. The area behind where we're talking about the driveway is a significant natural winter creek, and the runoff comes, as you know, from the surrounding streets. The runoff is a huge, and will be a huge issue for us. We're the last house affected by the water runoff. We're right on the corner of Nimrod and Gold Nugget Court. So after our house, the water goes into the street. Our yard floods in the winter. We can end up with 4 inches of water. And it's all coming from this natural creek that comes down through the other 2 yards into our yard. We have had debris wash down and knock our fence over. So my concern, or our concern, is less natural ground to soak up the water, and if that doesn't happen, that we're going to flood even more than we already do. I'm surprised that the Planning Commission hasn't looked at what would happen to the 3 houses down below from this address, and we have never been notified of any of this. We found out this morning by word of a neighbor. So there's concern that we weren't notified, and we're probably the house that's, in my opinion, the most affected by the floodwater. So if the paving proposal is approved, I'm concerned with who's responsible for any flood damage or any excessive flood damage that we may incur, and if in fact the city's responsible, or is the property owner where this work is being done responsible. So the negative impacts, in my opinion, obviously are the water flow, our flooding issue, and the effects on the natural wildlife and the environment in the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's me again. Ione Ishii, living at 512 Nimrod Street. I've lived here for 25 years. I kind of understood the report that came out, and I still believe the runoff will be an issue for our backyard. During the last few months, there was a small man-made barrier of debris that has reduced the water flow. However, with the rains we've had in the last spring since our last meeting, we still had a boggy situation. Specifically about the driveway, I'm really glad to hear the questions from the committee, because it is more than just aesthetics. I think it's potentially a blind driveway, and I think it's potentially dangerous. In our community, as you know, a lot of our city streets don't have a white line, divide line. Most of the people driving down Clay Street really drive in the middle of the road until a car approaches them, and then they go to the appropriate side. So when I look at this driveway, I think about the people who are suddenly, there's a car exiting, and surprise, there's no signage that said proposed to say blind driveway, yield, or whatever. So my question is, what do the police and fire departments think about this potential driveway? The proposed driveway is only 12 feet, which is not very wide. I have very large feet. I stepped that off. It is narrow, and if we're thinking about putting V drains on each side of the driveway, you're chewing up even more space, and that is now encroaching on the owner of that other land. Do you have approval to encroach upon his land? So can a large fire truck go down that driveway? We're talking about a 90-degree turn, and as you already talked about, the turnaround. Can a large fire truck turn around in that narrow space? I see Marty shaking his head, but I'd like the committee to answer that. The plan does not show how many trees will need to be cut down to accommodate the driveway. The only thing I see on the plan is one tree where the ADU is supposed to go. In looking at this driveway from Clay Street, I saw 3 very large trees, defined in my definition as 20 to 25 inches in diameter, and at least 8 to 10 shrubs that would have to be cleared. So I think the plan is really misrepresenting the amount of trees that have to be removed. Additionally, there's a very large tree directly above the ADU site that has a great deal of dead wood that needs to really be looked at, maybe an arborist, to see if this tree is diseased. I think this tree is definitely a fire hazard, so I think that needs to be attended to as well. Now, there is an alternative possible driveway, and that is right through the property on Nimrod. And this was mentioned 2 months ago, that clay is not the only solution for a driveway.
Your time is up. Please wrap up your
Okay.
comment.
ADU, it's the sewer line. The pavement that's being proposed is right on the sewer line, not the whole thing. So my question is what is the sewer line setbacks for an easement? When we looked into building in our backyard, we were told the easements, the setbacks were 20 to 30 feet. This plan does not accommodate that.
Thanks for your comments. You've gone over time. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that's it for public comment. Any discussion among the commission? Or any questions that have arisen from public comment?
I'd just like to give Brian an opportunity maybe to comment on some of the concerns that have been raised in public comment.
So the sewer line access, I'm not sure what you were told previously. I mean, we generally ask for enough width that we can get equipment over the strip of land to maintain our sewer, and it would be a minimum of 10 feet, roughly centered on the sewer line. That would allow us to get in and access and maintain the sewer line. As far as the driveway location, it is on the property, and also the V-ditch is on the property, so there's no encroachment on adjacent properties. I'm not sure about tree removal. The tree removal is probably being considered as part of the application. But those are some of the answers, questions.
And the comments about runoff, again, in your opinion, the enhancements that you intend to implement or include as part of our approval would adequately address the issues that the people here have brought up?
Yeah, so generally with drainage, you don't want to change flow in such a way where you're changing where it's discharging that would trespass onto someone's property or cause damage to someone's property. So you want to keep drainage following along its natural drainage course and topography. So, and then when there's development, whether it's a city street or a new home, you don't want to add drainage in such a way that it would impede on other properties. So, there is a slight amount of added drainage when you have impervious surface because it's no longer going through the topsoil and then pine needles. It's hitting the hard surface and running off. So that's typically mitigated with retention, like some method of holding back that water so that it can infiltrate close to the source. You want it to be as close to the same location as it would otherwise infiltrate, So those are some general guidelines that we follow for drainage, and they're addressed not only in our municipal code in certain ways, but also in the state codes.
So you're not just making this up?
Right. Yeah.
I think, putting myself in the shoes of the people downhill, I think the concern for me would be that you're removing 2 trees, which are significant water absorbers during high rain periods, but then you're also adding a huge amount of sheeting potential. So my question would be, to what extent does the calculation in the engineering report or the not geotechnical, water report, drainage report, thank you. To what degree does that take into effect or take into account the 2 trees removal in addition to the sheeting surface? And ultimately, can downhill neighbors expect that there's going to be more water runoff, or that maybe on the flip side, there could be an improvement to the kinds of water runoff that comes into their yards? Do you feel comfortable speaking to that?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with trees, like how much uptake there is for trees, or how much potential new runoff would be introduced if a tree's removed. I'm just not familiar with that. But the goal, definitely our goal with this approval and this design would be to not in any way increase drainage downstream. It'd be to reduce it or mitigate it to natural conditions.
Well, of course, that's the goal. The question is, realistically, can you assuage the fears that this is going to create more havoc with these plans?
Yeah, I can, as far as it goes from calculations of runoff, like how much rainfall, depth or intensity of rainfall. I just don't know how it relates with tree removal.
Sure. I wonder, to fellow commissioners and to the applicants, if, given that there is going to be this kind of rock-lined water catchment system, am I saying this correctly?
Yeah.
If there could also be some extra goodwill towards downhill neighbors in the way of planting some kind of vegetation around it that could seasonally take advantage of that water runoff?
There's no room.
Thank you. I'll speak to the applicants. It's something in the way of shrubbery or...
Sounds like you're proposing like a bioswale or something like that.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
There's
Like
plants that
and
help drink the water that go into the basin.
Right, right.
We could add something to the plan. I have a picture right after that big rain we just had, and couldn't even tell. I mean, it's pretty good rain. I took a picture right where the fence line is, and you couldn't even tell that any water made it all the way down there.
Were you taking the picture of your own yard or the neighbors?
My yard, the fence, her yard. And her yard's all grass, and it's a swale. And it's grass all the way down to the bottom, as far as I could tell. I mean, there's no structures down there or anything like that. And by the time it gets to the far neighbor, they're getting all that runoff from the other 2 houses. And so we're at the top of the hill.
All the same, I'm just looking for cooperative solutions.
Yeah, plant something would be great. Bushes, heck yeah.
Okay.
That's easy. And they're gonna get watered.
And as far as fire access, I live on a street that fire trucks can't get onto, and my understanding that in these driveways, and this is for Russ, Lisa, Brian, do fire trucks have to be able to get into this driveway? Is that the requirement, or is the requirement that the hose itself can get down to the
It's designed for
structure?
that.
But yeah, within the 150-foot arc of department access.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And there is a fire department,
Letter of approval, yeah.
letter of approval for this application.
Yeah, they wouldn't be driving fire apparatus down the driveway.
Okay.
We have to have the fire department sign off with the county anyway.
Right. Yeah, so that base has been, the fire base has been covered by the people who need to interface with it.
If I can, one other thing, that there's one tree that we're gonna take out for the driveway at the road. It's all the way up the road. It's covered in ivy, it's dying, it's a cedar. It's a whole bunch of trees right there. There's another cedar that's sitting right in the spot where the house is gonna be built and leaning over it. So that's on the other side, right where the little house is gonna be built, and that's the other tree that's going away. and she was concerned about the big pine tree that looks like it's dying. I had an arborist come look at it. I have a bid from them to clean that all up and take care of any problems for the future. It's a huge tree. We don't really want to lose it. It's great. But we're going to clean it up, take out those other 2 trees, and that's it.
So your intent is to keep that one?
Pardon?
Your intent is to keep that pine and
Yeah.
make it safe?
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter?
Thank you. Hey, Brian, I'm reading the staff report here. City's Development Performance Standard 17.80.100 requires permanent erosion controls such as holding bases and flow dissipators. This can be accomplished in a variety of ways, but here are some suggestions. My question is, permanent erosion control is the requirement in our standards, performance
Right.
standards. So are these 3 or 4, let's say 3 recommendations, are they calculated to get rid of the erosion problem? Are they permanent
Yeah.
erosion controls?
Yeah, they would meet that requirement as well as well as providing some retention. So it would meet that requirement by armoring the rock. I mean, the rock lining would armor the V-ditch where the slope's too much, where it would allow erosion of the soil.
Oops, okay. The question really is about the language rather than the recommendation. Because it's kind of maybe,
Yeah.
could be, best practice, you know.
Yeah.
So this is before us. If this was coming to you as a side issue, or if we sent it to you, would these recommendations, the rock lining, et cetera, would that mitigate the erosion issue? And
Yes, it-
and meet the requirements of the performance standard?
Yes, it would. It would prevent the soil from being suspended by the moving water
Okay, so
with the rock lining.
where I'm going with this is the language in the report says these things could be done, or there should also be, as opposed to these are the requirements for the approval of this driveway on the slope in this area.
Peter, I'd like to jump in. I think that goes to Amy's concern, that if we include Brian's recommendation, these things will be done, not recommended to be done. I think that answers, Amy's issue from before answers your concern, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, where I'm going is
Okay.
the language is a little less determinative than.
I think that was
Then the
exactly
requirement.
my point.
I could add to that too, because I would say that perhaps Brian's initial review of the site plan included evaluation of the rock dissipator, and would the rock dissipator on its own have, met the development performance standards?
Yeah, the rock dissipator that's on the plan now wouldn't quite meet the requirements that I'm recommending, which would be to build a small basin, rock line basin. It's a little bit more than just a rock dissipator. The rock dissipator is just it's just like a rectangular area of rock at the end of a pipe, for instance, or at the end of a ditch, just to prevent erosion from happening at the end of that pipe or ditch. That's typically what a rock dissipator is. So what I'm recommending is something more than that, something more along the lines of a rock line basin.
Any idea what size? I've built them before.
Yeah,
Pretty simple.
I think I said square foot of impervious area times half an inch, which is the 10-year depth of flow. So it'd be roof area, driveway area times half an inch.
Okay,
would be the volume.
okay. I'll talk to K2 about it and have them draw it up too. All right, no problem.
And I have a question of Russ. A concern was raised about liability, who's responsible for the water if it could be determined where increased flow came from. Did you catch that part of our conversation or the comments where, I don't know exactly how to phrase my question, but what are the liability implications when improvements alter significantly the drainage characteristics of an area? Is there an enhanced liability on the part of the property owner who made the improvements? Is that a good usable question?
Right, yeah. The general rule is that the party that disturbs the water course that's in existence is the party that is responsible should something go wrong. That is the whole basis for the required engineering review of no net increase in runoff at the property line. So as Brian is explaining, everything they're looking at is to ensure that there's no increase in the runoff and that it is detained or retained on the property site so the flows are not in excess of what currently exists. So that's the city's task in the engineering review, and the responsibility is on the property owner to construct those improvements in a manner that there's no net increase in runoff and no alteration to the drainage pattern.
And what,
That is.
Yes.
and what is the burden of proof on the potential downhill landowner?
Well, what is the burden of proof?
Well, for example, if a downhill neighbor says that, my yard is flooding and now it's flooding even more after you built your ADU, what do they have to demonstrate in order to, I'm just thinking ahead in terms of anticipating this conflict. I guess maybe it's not necessary, but.
Well, no, I'll play tag on Amy's question because it's hard to, rainfalls vary greatly. There's no fixed rainfall. I think it'd be hard to quantify, so that's to amplify Amy's question. And rainfall patterns are changing. So yeah, I'll amplify Amy's question. What would be the burden of proof?
Well, it's first, we're getting a little far afield from what is actually
Maybe we don't need to talk about it.
scope of the planning commission, but there are years and years and years and years and decades of litigation over exactly these kinds of questions. And there's no way to put a definitive answer on that because the water course may be fine for the typical storm, the 50-year event, the 100-year event, even the 200-year event, and then something extraordinary happens that is completely unexpected. Now, can you ever tie that back to one event of a certain improvement in time was the trigger that somehow created a downstream problem in that particular set of circumstances? I don't know. It's extremely challenging, but for the day in and day out, I've had 3 inches of water in my backyard when it rains X amount over X amount of time, and now I have 10 inches. You take pictures, you put measurements out. I mean, you do all the typical things. So,
Thanks, Russ.
there's no magic answer for
Right.
this.
Thank you. Just, we're seeking, I think, to robustly answer the questions or the concerns of people who have them, and to assure them that we're doing best practices.
And the best practices are the items, recommended items in front of us.
Right.
I believe so.
Engineering
Yeah.
best practices.
I'm trying to get the language lined up.
Rod, you've
No
made a lot of
further.
notes. I wonder if you have any commentary.
No, my questions have been answered through this
Okay.
discussion.
So with no further.
One more question.
Sure.
And I think this is outside of our purview, but assuming that the fixes are approved, then that is when Brian's group jumps back in and will review to see that it was built to the specifications. I mean,
That's a question for Lisa, I think.
Yeah,
okay, Lisa,
it
thank
would-
you.
So if the site plan was approved, then with those sorts of conditions added, then it would be looked at time of plan review. Or if he, provided another set and said, before I do engineering on the building, is this what you want? So yeah, it would just be further review at
Okay.
staff level.
But what about the review after all the work is done?
That would be the building department.
Okay.
But,
And that's built
I'm-
in? That's built into the process?
yes.
I mean, we don't get this type of project
Yeah.
often. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they need a soil test, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
the building inspector looks at the plans and makes sure
Yeah.
that everything that's on the plans is built per plan. So, and we could also take a look at it,
Okay.
our city engineer could look at it.
Well, it's an iffy issue if it's a rainy season, and so we want to make sure that what we're going to recommend will address the problem and gets done correctly.
Right.
And once it leaves us, we don't have any more to do with whether it's built correctly. That goes to
Right.
building and
Right.
planning. Okay, just looking for the process.
That's it for public comment. We've had a pretty robust discussion. I think we've answered all the concerns that
I was
were.
going to share something from your own city, but that's okay. You can be surprised.
Can you, let's see, can you suggest a way to more, let's see, instead of, as part of our motion, if we do move to approve, to include the engineer's recommendations as shalls rather than cans, and then we can be assured that it won't need to come back to us, that it will be handled as thoroughly as it should be handled.
Yes,
And would that be part of the motion, or would it be appropriate to change the language now? How would we, I'm just wondering how we would do that procedurally.
I'm thinking you could say that the motion is, as identified in the staff report with the finding of compliance with the requirements of the zoning code, and as conditioned, in addition, we require the 3 sections as defined by the city engineer for impervious surface mitigation, or something very similar. So like Brian, I think what he said is like, I'm not the engineer on this, I'm not the designer, and this is a few things that you could do, right? And so,
To improve
Well,
upon the engineer's recommendations or plans.
yes,
If we approve the staff recommendation, including the conditions for fire, engineering, planning, then that covers the recommendations, the specific construction recommendations that are number 3 in the engineering. So our approval will be approving this language and requiring that project upgrade on, okay. Just,
And I would just clarify that, you know, the report says it shall, or here are
Yes,
some
it does.
suggestions.
Yeah.
So include those things, or something very similar.
The engineering recommendation shall be implemented. That would cover it, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, from a standpoint of discussion, that despite the impacts on nature, this is what development does.
And also California state legislation is SB 9.
Yeah, there's an imperative to increase housing. And this driveway is a reasonable use of the property, in my opinion. It's not something unreasonable. It's quite customary. So aesthetics aside, it's not an unreasonable proposal. Would someone like to make a motion?
Why don't you do it, Amy, since you...
I feel like you're more inclined to do this correctly, but
Give it a shot.
I'll give it a shot, okay. I will move to approve the proposal as written in the staff report with the inclusion of engineering recommendations, including that number 3, the drainage analysis paragraph, and number 4, runoff from new improvements. Language will be changed from can and...
To shall.
Yeah, from anything that is ambiguous to shall.
I'd like to help out a little bit here.
Please.
Yes.
Thanks, Russ.
I would suggest your motion include implementation of mitigation measures or of engineering measures to mitigate runoff equal to or exceeding the suggested erosion control and retention measures included in item condition of approval 3 under engineering.
3 and 4?
Yes.
The importance of this is that the design engineer is taking responsibility for the no net increase in runoff.
Yes.
So our city engineer has identified some minimum standards. There may be an alternative, better way to approach it once the actual plans are in front of him, and an or equal is fine. So that's why the language is phrased the way it is. So the approval is with the engineering standards or alternatives that perform equally or better.
Thank you, Russ. And I would also add to that motion to make an inclusion for all other conditions of approval in the staff report.
And I have one more for you, Lisa.
Okay.
Help me out here, guys. And the added landscaping around the, what do you call it? The
Retention,
Retention basin?
Retention basin, not the property line, where the water is going to be collected.
so like a bioswale effect.
Yes, added vegetation to create a bioswale effect.
Like before or after?
After. This
That's
is,
pretty much the property line. It'd be a dissipator. And
for me, I'm just thinking about where the vegetation is in relation to where the water's collecting.
I just need to know where to put it on the plan.
Your engineer will know.
Your engineer, yeah, it's,
He'll know how to design the bioswale.
yeah, it's going
Yeah.
to look like kind of a depression of largish rocks, right?
Right.
And around it, you're going to be wanting to put something
Oh, okay, around the perimeter.
that's going to be assisting in that collection of water to absorb and then bring it back up. And then
Okay.
hopefully this can also counter effect. Sometimes we like to ask applicants if they take trees down to plant trees elsewhere
Gotcha.
to counteract that net effect. Not always, but sometimes.
Got it. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Nye?
Yes.
Okay, can we also have a finding on the tree removal and the CEQA, please?
Move we find the project CEQA exempt,
As in the staff report?
as in the staff report.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Nye?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I can report that Lisa's got all of the right things written down here.
Oh, thanks. And then a finding for the tree removal.
And the tree removal is how many trees in this case?
2,
Two. It's the driveway and behind where the house or the ADU is proposed?
yes.
Okay.
There's others in the location of the driveway that I saw that
I also saw, yes.
Marty thinks they don't need to come down, but when construction happens, if they need to come down, then,
I wanted the two
You'll
amendment
just-
for my neighbors.
yeah, turn in a permit if you end up needing to. But yeah, one is in the footprint of the house and then a large tree that's where the driveway is proposed.
Okay, motion to approve the removal of the 2 proposed trees, 2 identified trees,
When can
as written in the staff report. Where is that?
And do we want to add added trees if necessary? That's good.
I
Is that
think
what
we-
you're- Is that
I-
what you're leading
No,
us?
No, I already
Okay.
covered that in the bioswale.
Okay.
Other trees to be added, but
To remove.
additional tree removals maybe should come to a liaison.
No, we
Or
were
a
just
new
saying,
application. We'd need a new
Yeah, we
application.
just
Okay.
did tree removal.
we're just
Okay.
approving the 2 trees that are in the application.
Okay, only, right, with no provision for any
Okay.
additional found.
That answers my question.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Zant?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair Nye?
Yes,
Motion carries.
your application's approved.
So, thank you all. Quick question on the trees, do I have to wait until the whole permit thing's done before I take the trees down, or can I get them cleaned up now?
No, you have your tree permit, but there's a 15-day appeal period, so I would wait for that to be over.
Sure.
And I'll send you a permit, your stamped permit for the tree removal.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And thank you, neighbors, for coming.
Thank you.
Pardon?
I'm saying
Yeah.
thank you to your neighbors for coming.
Brian, thanks for your help here, clarification, very helpful. Shall we have a break before we go to discussion of the dark sky ordinance?
I think so.
Sure.
Let's have a break. We will be on a recess. Welcome back, everyone. Next item on the agenda is number 9, discussion of the dark sky ordinance. What do you have for us, Lisa?
Well, I wanted to prepare something very eloquent to say, but I ran out of time, so.
Natural speech will do just fine.
Yes, it's just going to have to be the natural speech. So in February of 2023, Planning Commission requested that staff add a discussion item for drafting a dark sky ordinance. And then at the March 16th, 2023 meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed the International Dark Sky Association Community Program Guidelines and Ridgeway, Colorado's lighting ordinance, and requested staff to start working on an ordinance. So I just kind of wanted to go into the importance of dark skies and the reason why the city is interested in adopting this ordinance, and it is largely driven by the discussion that the Planning Commission had in March of last year, which really highlighted all of the values and the benefits of having darker skies. The idea behind the ordinance change is that the city regulates lighting in different and new ways in order to reduce any future light pollution or continued light pollution, and hopefully even bring light pollution down. And that would be in hopes of receiving and applying for certification to be a dark sky community from the International Dark Sky Association. I did reach out to the association and put in a request. I have not heard back on that yet. I get the sense they say that it takes anywhere between 1 and 3 years to get certified, and I get the sense that there's just sort of some, it's just a little bit of a slow process because of how many folks they have on staff and just maybe their business model, I'm not sure. But my idea of how the ordinance in relation to the certification will go is that we draft an updated ordinance knowing the requirements of being certified, do our best to include what's applicable to our town and what works for Nevada City, and you know, with the intention of meeting their requirements, and then if some other things are required along the way to actually be certified because of some specific situation here in our community, then we can address it at that point. So I included in your staff report lighting ordinances from 4 dark sky certified towns: Ketchum, Idaho, which is Sun Valley, Idaho, which is a ski resort town. San Diego County has a community within it called Julian. That's a dark sky place community. And so they have their ordinance is called light pollution. And they have established zones within their ordinance so that that specific zone for Julian is able to be dark sky certified. Ridgeway, Colorado, which you reviewed last year, and Jonestown, Texas, just for kind of another frame of reference. And then I also included Truckee, California's exterior lighting and night sky ordinance, which I find to be helpful as well. And I have talked with a planner on staff at the town of Truckee about how they regulate their exterior lighting, and they don't do architectural review at the planning commission level per se, but staff reviews the fixtures, and then the building inspector confirms that the fixtures that were chosen are actually the fixtures that are installed. So I do find that section of their ordinance useful. So just to kind of highlight the discussion from the March meeting, I'm sure you all read these in your staff report, but some of the many benefits of having darker skies are that it enhances the well-being of the community, preserves dark skies for healthy ecosystem. And when I say enhance the well-being of the community, there's very real health benefits. Light pollution disrupts sleep cycles. There's a misconception that brighter is safer, which leads to over-illumination and can actually inhibit visibility. Dark skies preserve an increasingly rare aesthetic of a starry sky. There's clear outcomes and goals included in the community engagement process should be included, and that was Amy's comment. There's also an importance of an education element about dark skies, which I've started working on and engaging with the community on. We should include a phasing period in our regulations was one thought from that meeting. We need to have some specific things lined out for government buildings and how to regulate or allow exceptions. And I know that the post office was one building that was talked about, and probably the jail. Color, temperature, uniformity, and dark sky compliant. Fee waivers and rebates for replacement was discussed a bit. And so I'll go ahead and, so what I have before you today is sort of just looking at the framework of the ordinance and the different sections that I think that should be included based on research of other cities and towns. And I just wanted to have a discussion on those and get any feedback that you have. I know that there probably wasn't enough time for anybody to really dig into the details and get into the technical details and things, so don't worry about that. We'll get there. But so I'll start my PowerPoint here. Oops. Okay, so with the ordinance framework, our lighting standards right now are very light. They can be found in section 17.80.215, which includes a requirement on shielding, 30-degree cutoff, light trespass over property line, candle foot, and things like that, as you all are aware. So I'm thinking that for our new ordinance, rather than updating our existing outdoor lighting standards, that it would be more appropriate to repeal and replace that section of our municipal code. I would appreciate any feedback on the name. I was thinking that what would be appropriate would be dark sky exterior lighting standards. Also, I'd like to have a discussion about provisions to include in the ordinance, which I'll go through here in my slides, and then review of other jurisdictions' work, if anybody did have time to look at those and has anything specific that they pulled out that they said, you know, this community did this and that's brilliant, like we really need to have that, or something specific to Nevada City. So any thoughts on the name of the ordinance, the dark sky exterior lighting standards?
Fine with me.
I think it works to me.
Yep. I will, I will note that I've heard some comments from some people in the local astronomical community who feel that dark sky has some specific means within that, that this shouldn't be considered that, but I disagree. I think dark sky we're looking to be consistent with the dark sky organization, so having this be consistent with that is a good thing. So
Okay.
just FYI, you may hear something.
What do they
back.
think of as the dark sky?
Dark, they mean
Like going to the middle of
dark.
Nevada?
Yeah, Northern California.
Is there like a objection or argument based on an actual definition of within astronomy
Is it
communities?
just nitpicky expertness?
Yeah, they just,
I think it's important to them, but to the general public,
Yeah.
it's not going to understand the
so
difference.
dark sky is a thing that means something like capital D, capital S has.
If you, I don't want to go down too far down this rabbit
Right.
hole.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thing called the Bortle scale, which is a measure of how dark your sky is. And it's like, if you are Bortle scale 1, you can see all this detail and these particular astronomical features.
Okay.
If you're Bortle scale 2, you can see a few less, and it goes all the way up till 9 when you're, in Times Square or something, kind of thing, so.
We're not doing any kind of copyright infringement.
No, I just wanted to make the point that there might be some consideration, but we're working for the general public, and there's a standard that we're looking to, and an organization that we're looking to be consistent with, so I think this is completely appropriate.
So no Portal Scale 7 light standards?
No 7.
Okay.
We are a town.
Yeah,
I think it's a good title.
yeah, I do too.
Well, specifically, our holiday building lighting would that be changed? Would that
Are we going to
still
get to
be
that? 'Cause
allowed?
let's hold on.
I think Lisa has an agenda for us.
I think we're going to get there, Peter.
Yeah, and just a preloading question. You'll guide us through the areas that you would like our input on. You'll give us a tour of what you need from us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. But that's helpful. And I think it's also naming it dark sky is sort of almost claiming that we're going to be dark sky certified before knowing that we are. So I'll think about that a little bit too. Like Truckee's is exterior lighting in the night sky, which is also relevant. but-
To me, that's like too exterior.
Milquetoast.
Yeah, it's like, do we want a lot of light or do you don't want a lot of light? You could even call it like, preserving our nighttime darkness or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That is less vague than Truckee's is.
Star vision.
Yeah. So many people in so many areas, like, we're this maintaining our rural, small town dark sky or something like that.
Starry nights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Starry nights and exterior lighting.
return to candles?
Preserving, the visibility of the natural sky, something along those
Yeah.
lines too.
Or
Is that a suggestion?
Preserving the nighttime.
I don't know. She's just looking for stuff she's going to take into account. These are all off the top of my head.
Darker sky? Darker sky?
I like having some sort of goal, all right? Something more concrete, but anyway, Lisa can work on that.
So, of all of the reference ordinances that I used, there was lots of similarity between them, but different naming and sections within. So I sort of went through and said, and looked at what was going to be, what's relevant here, and made sure that I was trying to be inclusive of all of the things that we need to be including. And this is what I came up with as potential sections within the ordinance. So the first would be purpose, which I think was pretty clearly defined by the commission and can be worked on, the verbiage will be worked on. Applicability, definitions, lighting zones. Lighting zones is a maybe, depending on if we need to create a zone for the historic district or the commercial zone of Seven Hills. Submissions of plans and evidence of compliance, exemptions, special uses, and non-conforming, lighting standards, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole ordinance, prohibited lighting, and the city's role. So we'll run through some of these. I didn't include purpose because that's a statement that I think commissioners are clear about. So applicability includes regulation triggers, new permits, commercial projects, et cetera, like who does this ordinance apply to? Timelines for conformance. And I made a note here about Ketchum's, they call it their scope section. And I did think that that ordinance was really clear. So, yeah, and then definitions will just simply come together as the ordinance is drafted. Lighting zones, some of them included zones for urban and commercial, residential, and then recreation and open space. I remember that the lighting zones conversation in the ordinance, the recreation and open space included provisions for field lighting, but then low lighting at night. So like pretty dark places at night.
What does field lighting mean?
Something
Field
like Pioneer
lighting
Park?
is, so if there's
Oh,
a
like
baseball field.
Oh, I
a
see.
sports field or sports court,
Tennis court?
yeah, where there is typically
Okay,
higher
okay.
intensity lighting.
Lisa, just back to the timelines for conformance. My recollection is the Truckee one did not have that, right? Are they in the process of is their current thing going to change that, do you know, or?
I don't think they're going, I haven't heard that they're looking to adopt an ordinance.
Oh, okay. I thought they were doing something based on other discussion, but
I
is
think
that
that they
incorrect?
update their lighting standards.
Okay.
Every so often. But the planner that I talked to, which this was a little while back, said that they weren't looking at updating it.
Okay.
But they are doing their Dark Skies photography contest and like awareness campaign, and so,
Okay.
somebody could decide that they wanted to at some point.
Is this the time, well, like as these come up, is this the time we should be like discussing or adding suggestions maybe?
Yep.
The regulation triggers is a thing of interest. Like an assessment of existing nonconformance by city staff. So that we essentially have a catalog of what needs to be done and which property owners or businesses should be contacted. So,
Or street poles need addressing?
Yeah. And I did see that in the dark sky certification requirement that cities have to be willing to change out their lighting within 5 years. So,
So our current lights are fully shielded, but the color temperature, I'm thinking about the PG&E ones that were replaced recently. I agree, there's other city ones that are not
There's
that
one
have
right
problems.
outside my window.
right,
Yeah.
and there are a couple at Pioneer Park too that are.
Yeah, there are a number around the city. I was thinking more like, there's a lot of the PG&E ones.
So in
Would that
addition-
color temperature be, I think that's like
are those the newer
3.
style or the older style? Like-
The one that was done, what was that, 5 years ago when they changed everything out?
Okay.
So in addition to regulation triggers, do we think that there should be like a 1A or instead of something that's new, to Tom's point, like a general assessment of town?
Yeah, I think that's going to be important if we go for the certification especially.
Do we identify that differently? Does that matter to you? Is that the kind of input you're looking for?
Yeah, that's great input. I'm not sure if we would include it in the ordinance per se, because I'm not sure if it stands the test of time really. Like, is it something that would need to be done at regular intervals?
I see
Or
what you
is it
mean.
like just out of the gate when we pass the ordinance?
I see.
We take the time and the, you know, the man hours to go out and do that work.
I think an impediment to assessment would be requiring neighbors who are bothered by lights that aren't compliant, ratting on their neighbors. If it were more somehow neutral. And I discussed this, I had a discussion with Sean, who said that enforcement measures really aren't the business of the ordinance. Therefore, that's not the business of us. But to rely on complaints as an assessment tool, it would probably be unreliable. I think people would be diffident, I guess, about like ratting on their neighbors.
Right. So from
Because
what,
it can disturb a kind of an existing harmony. I mean, I don't need to explain it.
Yeah, I was thinking the neighbor with the backyard tennis court with bright lights that are on all night, right? Besides the noise bothering the neighbors, what about the light?
Well, right, but, or a motion-activated pair of floodlights that actually shine at someone's house, and that person who's bothered by that light just gets blackout shades and resents their neighbor and doesn't say anything to the neighbor to disturb the
This is
peace.
sounding so close
Is
to
it?
home.
What? It's sounding what?
So close to home.
Familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, anyway.
Sounds a passive aggressive text.
Passive aggressive, it's not passive aggressive. No, it's not everybody has a really good, open relationship with their neighbors. And it seems like in a small town, regulation trigger might be, part of it might be just an independent, like, survey.
yeah,
Maybe that would occur periodically.
okay.
What about, do we have capacity to do a satellite-based assessment? What, there's gotta be something out there that
Like by using night sky photography or something?
yeah, like,
Or
like kind
aerial.
of like a heat map, or a light map,
Mm-hmm.
where you can kind of hone in on the areas that are producing the most light and then see like, is it because there's a higher concentration of PG&E poles or like commercial lighting, or is it because?
I think we have a fair amount of vegetation that might make that.
Yeah,
And-
we're like trespass might not be detected.
Well, yeah, but I think it's like, to my mind, from a scientific approach, that would be the first way I'd start, because,
I feel like we got a
Identify
lot to
the
get
trouble.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
detail that
Okay.
Lisa can go off and
I
investigate.
like that, though.
Okay.
Because you could do like a GIS analysis, almost like a, what do you call it? The infrared or something. Okay. Yeah, and from what I understand, the ordinance will need to include a timeline for conformance. So San Diego County had their city lights and infrastructure at 5 years, and the other properties, private property, at 10 years.
For pre-existing, now
For
non-conforming.
existing non-conforming, yeah. So which will become non-conforming, exactly.
And I don't know if this is the time for this, but I had a discussion with Brian McAllister a while ago regarding PG&E lights, and there's one that's bothersome to me. And he said that PG&E, those lights have, there's an installable shielding device that they have that's a retrofit that's available for their standard luminaires. And if you request it and and wait for it, I guess, but there's a charge for it. And so within the city, there'd have to be, city funding to bring those PG&E lights into compliance. Or that could be part of it. And also, that would be a big move to set an example of how much more pleasant and effective shielded light can be.
Yeah.
To maybe increase enthusiasm for for people doing it on their properties, just voluntarily, pre the phase-in deadline.
Right.
Anyway.
After it's instituted, do we get into the compliance business? You know, in other words, the tennis court, for instance, in a neighborhood, new neighbor comes in, puts in the tennis. So that would be a code enforcement
Yes,
issue?
but the timeline will have to be set in the ordinance. So it'll say, you know, if this ordinance is adopted in 2024 and we choose to make that 10 years, it'll say by 2034.
Okay.
All lights that don't comply with this, the standards of this ordinance must be changed over. So I have to do more research about that to see if, you know, what is appropriate for the timeline. Like, would 5 years be okay? If we wanted to fast track it, would that be okay? So I just don't quite know enough yet
Okay.
about that.
And since
Any-
we live across the street from a school, which has the security lights on every night, you know, it's not that bad, but, you know, it probably exceeds what we're gonna come up with. Now, do we have they're another public agency, would our ordinance cover other agencies within the jurisdiction?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll need to have some exclusions.
Okay.
But I'm not sure whether a school would be applicable for that, just off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, it's something that'll probably fall out or fall into the ordinance as we get.
I wonder if there's data about like eventual adoption, not adoption, but if the implementation timeline is say it's 3 years, does that decrease the effectiveness of the program? Does that create more public pushback? Does a longer timeline prove to be more thoroughly effective? You know,
Probably because over the course of 10 years, a lot of people are going to voluntarily change out light fixtures or do a remodel or something to where they would change them out and then it would go through plan check. But yeah, it does kind of come down to that awareness piece. And hopefully, if the community sees the importance of having darker skies, they'll get on board with it. And then hopefully we can budget in some money to do like a rebate program and, you know, put those flyers of come into City Hall and pick out new fixtures or get reimbursed for new fixtures to come into compliance for some of those properties with the bright, terrible lights.
Should we, for the sake of efficiency or time here, go through the slides and make sure that we get all your needs covered?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of
Sounds
just.
I feel, we all have so many thoughts about this. I feel like we could spend.
Lisa is writing things down, though.
I'm writing.
Yeah.
And you guys went so fast on the other things, so that's great.
Some of them.
And then this section, submission of plans and evidence of compliance, it would line out the building permit process, plan review, through to inspection with the building department. It would also state how conditional use permits and site plan projects are required to comply with this section. It would have lighting specs, which I think what I meant by that is some of the specifications regarding color temperature, but I'm not positive. And then there'd be a statement of compliance with the chapter. And then a section on exemptions and special uses, exemptions, special uses, and non-conforming. So that would include, oops,
Oh, there's my recreation lighting, right there.
yeah. Most of the
Holiday lighting.
towns that I've reviewed have special exceptions for gas station lighting, and then also sports courts, ball fields, and recreation lighting, which is talked about in the dark sky certification as potentially acceptable exceptions. I think that our gas lamps will need to be called out in this section of the ordinance, and then this will be also include some discussion on holiday lighting. As we all know, we have a lot of that here.
I wonder about the gas lamps though, because there are dark sky compliant light fixtures that have an exposed light source. And my understanding is that that can be because the light emission is within a certain level.
Something to explore.
Yeah, I mean, because the gas lamps may already be compliant within the
I think
dark
that
sky.
they might be too. I saw a thing in Ketchum's where they have it explicitly that any lights that are powered by gas or something like that are exempt.
Just
So,
as a care, I think
Yeah.
about going camping and somebody's got that Coleman lantern, which is jacked up to,
super bright.
yeah, sunburn levels kind of thing, so.
Next to the CD player. All night long, yeah.
Yeah.
And is gas station lighting, it's always excessive. I mean, you leave there with blindness, you know? You leave a gas station at night blinded by the excessive canopy light.
Is what you're getting at, is there room for addressing the specifics in this list as well and seeing if we can maybe bring them down?
Yeah, does gas station lighting have to be exempt, or can it be regulated?
I'm not sure. There might be something that is like a state law or something that requires gas station lighting to be brighter, but I'm really not sure.
I don't
yet.
think so.
Something
I think you get two things. You want to have enough lighting so people who are getting gas at night can see what's going on, but they also, you know, if they're close to a freeway like 49, bright lights, so it's an advertisement.
It's an advertisement, right?
Yeah.
An excessive lighting level is an advertisement, like
Yeah.
an internally illuminated sign
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
on after business hours.
This is
Yep.
going to, unpopular opinion as well, but flagpole lighting, is that like a federal requirement?
We would need to have a section in there about flagpole lighting.
But is it a requirement? Do we have to light up flags?
Yes, and so you can light them from above,
Okay.
or put an extension on the pole or something. to
Okay,
light
so
from
it doesn't
above.
have to be upward facing, it could be downward.
There's some examples in the sample ordinances that have
Okay, I
that,
didn't
something
see
on
that.
top pointing down.
Cool.
Yeah. And then our lighting standards, this will be the part that I reference when I'm reviewing projects or future planners. And the planning commission will reference this section often, I'm sure, so that'll include shielding, color temperature, light trespass and overlighting, non-essential exterior lighting, area lights, prohibited uplighting, public outdoor lighting, lighting fixtures, and lighting fixture exceptions, like a flagpole lighting and holiday lights, and energy efficiency. So one of the photographers that's helping us for the dark sky photography campaign took this photo on Sugarloaf
I was just gonna say.
recently.
It's very bright.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's also, you can see that it's a long exposure, but yeah, you're right.
Like, yeah.
It was just after that big storm. I think it was the day after or something.
And the false sunrise in the back is Grass Valley.
Maybe.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's veering towards the west, but depending on the time of year, that is,
Well, the one upper right is Seven Hills, right?
Seven Hills, yeah, you can kind of see where the brightness is. I'm kind of surprised that it looks almost like gold flat. You can kind of see that
oh, yeah.
row of lights.
Huh.
I feel like I can sort of imagine where the Northern Queen is, and Seven Hills, and downtown. There's one really bright light there that looks,
It'll be really interesting to compare this picture in 10 years.
yeah.
Also, the county buildings are within the city limits, right? Obviously, room for improvement there, too. I
Yep.
think that's part of what we're seeing in that picture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're sort of on the hill over here.
Wait, the county, which county building?
The
whole
Root
stuff
Center.
at Root
The
Center.
Root Center's not in that picture.
I think we're seeing some glow from it.
No, don't you think?
No,
it's-
Root Center would be all the way over, like, towards the exit door with the orientation on this picture, because if we're looking straight at downtown, which is like kind of center, yeah.
Right, that bright spot in the foreground on the right near the border could be some of the parking lot lighting at the Root Center.
It's not, no, that wouldn't be the parking
Yeah.
lot, that would be, if anything, that would be
I
the,
withdraw my comment. So we can keep going.
Yeah. Energy efficiency,
Yeah, we have that in our code now.
it says energy efficient, but it doesn't, there's no
Yeah.
values associated with that.
Right.
well, same with color temperature, it's just a category to be.
Defined.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would it be then by, like, what, power consumption per lumen or something like that?
I am not sure yet.
Got it.
Do you have any ideas?
I would like to read more about, I would like to know more
Yeah.
before throwing out ideas.
And why that would be helpful, really, toward this goal.
Well, I can think immediately of a few reasons why it would be helpful.
But I think potentially also some of these original dark sky things were done before LEDs were
Right,
so,
which are so efficient.
right, were so prominent that maybe it's less important now just by default.
And then we'd need to have a section on prohibited lighting. So the lighting that doesn't meet the requirements of the chapter, including searchlights, beacons, laser source, or other high-intensity internally illuminated signs, flashing, blinking, rotating, chasing, or changing color lights. And then we'd need to have a section, I believe, on the city's role that sort of defines changing out fixtures as they expire, our commitment to updating city lights within 5 years, working with PG&E for changing to shielded street lights.
I would think there could also be the color temperature as well with PG&E.
Say that again?
I think the color temperature might also be an issue with PG&E.
It might be
Yeah,
an intractable issue, an
but it's
impossible
something
issue.
to, a lot of things seem that way with PG&E these days.
Yeah.
Is enforcement part of the city's role?
I think it should be.
We bought a house from a woman who was a senior woman living alone. It scared the hell out of us the first couple of nights. She had trigger lights, motion lights. Walk out on the deck and all of a sudden it's like this, and they're bright. So I don't know if that's going to fall under,
I think it's something.
it's a safety issue for people,
But I think it's something, it's a good point, Peter. I think it's something that can be considered because, I mean, I walk early in the morning sometimes and I'll be walking in the street and people's lights will come on and off, It would be certainly good if it stayed focused on people entering their property or something like that.
And not only humans, raccoons.
Yeah.
If you leave sandwiches out on the deck or something, or some food, that.
Don't leave sandwiches on the deck.
Well, the motion sensor lights are actually good because they keep
Mostly
the,
leftover pizza.
they keep the overall light down
Yeah.
at night when nobody's using it. And then if somebody walks up because they're getting in their car or something, turns it on.
Mhm.
So it keeps the
The overall.
down.
Well, And there,
Yeah.
and there are like parking lot lights that are that way. They're on a super low level until somebody drives in
Yeah.
and then it goes up. And I'm talking commercial parking lots, and then it drops down again.
I think in this one, there should, in addition to commitment to updating city lights, there should be a commitment to adjusting and updating the ordinance as it is pertinent to dark sky compliance nationally. I suspect that probably like we're going to be learning things about whatever kinds of aspects of the ordinance are important now will probably change much in the same way that everything else changes, like with respect to wildlife and, yeah.
Right, like a timeline for to review where we are and adjust the ordinance toward actually becoming a dark sky city at some point in the midst of the phase-in period.
But-
It gets stronger later.
I think you're just talking longer term. You
What I'm
expect the
talking
signs.
about is just a commitment to this is not gonna be a static thing, yes, we will get dark sky compliance, but maybe new research, new developments, new technology emerge after that happens. So what I'm suggesting is that we should have a commitment to being relevant
Right.
and up to date.
But maybe within 3 years to have a baked-in review.
Well, we can figure out how long that will be, but
Yeah.
just in terms of big picture.
Yeah, I like
So that it
that.
doesn't have to be, so that it doesn't have to be something that's brought up by the council or us. So there's a baked-in review period. How are we doing? Do we need to increase or change anything on X date?
Yeah.
Which is currently unknown.
Yep, sounds great. So that's all the slides I have.
And I like the incentivization.
Yeah, for sure.
A thought I've been having, people very much want to have a very brightly lit environment around their homes. And the obvious and seemingly in people's minds only way to do that is by mounting lights that shine outward from the house or from the structure. And people could have that environment if the lights were on poles or someplace around the perimeter of their property shining inward. As long as it wasn't upward directed, they could have a brightly lit property that would not cause light trespass because all of it's directed toward their structure and not toward the neighbors. Which would, and people might not opt to do that, but it does give people who really feel they need that an option so they can have their extremely brightly lit compounds that don't disturb neighbors directly.
Sort of along the same line, in my neighborhood, they're not bright, but there are a couple houses that have those accent lights, including one that was installed relatively recently during the pandemic, that are shining up on a number of trees in their yard. It's not super bright, but yet it is directly straight up illumination.
Well lights, tree lights, up lights
Would be prohibited.
yeah.
The point I'm getting to is that, sort of like you were saying, I think you were alluding to before, having demonstration of good practices that are attractive. If you had somebody who had downward facing, a demonstration accent lights, that oh, that looks nice.
In the fancy Hamptons, the cooler way to do tree lighting is to have the instrument up in the tree, and then it actually looks like natural moonlight. The tree, as you can see it and enjoy its
clever.
profile.
Cool.
And it doesn't shine up, and it doesn't look like I'm a ghost of a tree, you know? It just looks like
The
moonlight.
tree's not telling a ghost story
Yeah.
with the,
Yeah.
with the light under its chin, yeah.
We'll call it the Hampton option.
Yeah, but that it became the more attractive way, the cooler way to light your trees rather than those.
Maybe the uplights are a little bit 90s in some ways, I guess, but yeah.
They're a lot easier to install.
They're a lot easier to install.
Somebody has to climb a tree. But those could certainly be allowed, like downlights in
Yeah,
trees.
for sure.
Of course, if you're gonna move the lights out, it's gonna cost money to wire them and poles and all that
But if you
stuff.
want that, there's,
Yeah, the options are.
Well,
Yeah.
there are solar options.
And clearly, people in my neighborhood spend some money to do all this and the number of trees that they have lit like this way,
Yeah.
so. I mean,
Is this helpful?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where are you going next with this? Like, what's the timeline for you?
I mean, ideally, I'd like to bring you back something in June. That's a little bit more words-oriented on paper,
ordinance-y.
ordinance-y. Yeah.
Would it be appropriate or inappropriate for us to, like, you know, independently dig into because maybe we haven't all read all those ordinances, to reach out to you and independently make suggestions or ask questions?
Yeah, that would be fine.
It wouldn't deprive the public of in any way. It would not be incorrect.
I don't believe so.
It's okay.
Because it's gotta come back to the public before it's
Yeah.
installed, yeah, or legal.
I'm asking for the
Here
benefit of
comes
the
Russ.
public, and here's Russ.
Yeah,
He says it's
been fun,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yes, no problem.
Good. Thanks for popping up.
I would like to continue to participate in this. I will likely miss the July meeting, so June or August is good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, awesome, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Is that it?
That's it.
We were so efficient in the very
All
beginning.
right,
I mean, just generally.
gavel us out, Mr. Chair.
I have some announcements.
Oh,
Yes, Lisa has
Almost
announcements.
forgot
Rod.
here. Sorry. May is National Bike Month, and today is Bike to Work Day, so we might have missed that. What else did I
Sure
have?
could use some more bike lanes.
I know, we could. I did help purchase 2 city e-bikes for city staff. which
saw
were
one.
out there.
Oh, nice.
More city staff.
Yes,
And did you know that the county is getting a couple too for
I
this?
didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so we can bike back and forth.
perfect.
I think there was a conversation about getting compatible lockers
Oh,
for,
okay.
for bikes. Mhm.
Nice. Yeah, we got, so as part of the parking in lieu fee agreement for Brewbuilt, they provided 2 Bollard-style bike racks. So those are getting installed on York Street.
Great.
And then our Dark Sky, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark photo contest is open for submissions. Nevada County Arts Council has stepped in and helped us in a big way, and they're hosting the contest on their website. Heather Heckler has been great. She sort of helped bring us all together. So Amy from Grass Valley, Ariel Levitt from the county, Taylor from the county, and myself have been working on things in that regard. And then we're also doing, as part of that awareness campaign, a free photography, night sky photography experience. So if anybody knows photographers or knows anybody who might be interested in learning night sky photography, that's going to be on June 8th. And I've got 4 night sky photographers that are local here that are really in support of this initiative and our ordinance, and they're helping us for free, which is so kind. And the photos that I've been using for the stickers and the social posts and things are their photos as well. So we'll be doing a PowerPoint learning scenario in here before going out into the field. And then we'll go out to Washington Ridge, so up on Washington Road. There's a place where you could pull out, and there's a big parking lot, and I think the Astronomy Club goes up there sometimes. So
And
even,
what time does that start?
so it starts here at 6:30, and then we'll plan on going in the field at 8. I'm going to talk to a few restaurant owners and see if they can offer a discount that night, maybe. And then hopefully we'll get some good attendance for that.
Would you like to read aloud the name of a web address for people who might want information about any of this?
Sure.
Who are just
How many
watching YouTube?
people do you
and-
think are watching?
People do. People actually do.
I thought it was just Miriam, bless her.
No.
So the web address for submission of your photos, night sky photos, so it can be a photo of, the night sky, or it could also be a photo of light pollution. And the web address is nevadacountyarts.org/dark skies. And then I have information posted on our website. So if you just type in dark sky on our website, which is nevadacityca.gov, you'll see the content that I've put up there.
Oh, good.
Do you have a link to the arts as well? Yeah, cool.
And it hasn't gone out yet, and we have for the experience, but we'll be posting that soon, hopefully tomorrow, and doing a press release for that.
And I imagine reservations or
Yeah, sign up in
RSV
advance is
RSVPs.
appreciated, but not mandatory. Yes. So there'll be a website or a link with like a QR code that people can scan and tell us they're coming.
That's Saturday.
Good, great work.
Saturday, June 8th.
Yep.
Thanks.
With no further ado, I will adjourn us.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Russ. Thank you.
Did you guys